I was up way too late the other night looking at random floors and a thought came to mind. Is Cedar Point the Ford of theme parks? Now on the surface, this may not seem to make much sense, but let me explain. If you look back at the history of Ford, you will see them at the top of the automotive world in the 1960s. The Ford Mustang came to life in 1964 and was one of the main cars of the decade. They won the Le Mans with the GT40 in 1966 and dominated it for the next couple of years, and were on the rise with record-breaking elite cars for their times. This just was Cedar Point of the 1980s into the early 2000s, being on the top of the park world with record-breaking coasters like Magnum XL200 and Millennium Force dominating their time, and Cedar Point rising to be one of the top theme parks of the time. In the early 2000s, both seemed to slow down. Ford was not as focused on building track and record-setting cars. However, they did build two of their most remembered projects at the time, with the SVT team building the Terminator Cobra and the SVT Lightning. Neither the best or fastest car of the time, but they have become known as some of Ford's best vehicles. It's like Cedar Point around the same time in 2007 opening Maverick. At a time they were expected to be building record-breaking coasters, they went with a smaller coaster that packed a punch, just like the Cobra and the Lightning, and slowly became one of Cedar Point's most famous coasters, and is still currently known as one of their best, even today. Looking at more modern times, Cedar Point and Ford still have some similarities, like look at the Mustang GTD and steel engines. The GTD broke the Nürburgring record for American cars, which was beat just a few months later by Chevy and the Corvette, just like steel engines being beat just a few years later by Iron Gwazi. Even after it was thought nothing would get close to them records anytime soon. Taking into account crazy concepts that never happened, they are also very similar. Cedar Point has Maverick's Heartline roll and the world's tallest floor coaster that never happened, and Ford has the SVT Thunder, the GT90, and the 2004 Cobra concept car that were crazy ideas for the time that would have changed history if they happened. Just like how Maverick's Heartline roll would have been one of the most intense elements ever built, and the Florida's coaster would have went with what Cedar Point had been doing, breaking records, and Maverick wouldn't have happened, changing their history forever. Then when you look at other things about the two, like the reliability, because we all know both Ford vehicles and Cedar Point rides, cough Top Thrill 2, have the reliability issues. So while this is a weird thing to think about, do you think Cedar Point is the Ford theme park, or is Cedar Point the theme park version of Dodge or Chevy, or someone completely different, or is it something that's completely unrelated? Are there not any similarities? Let me know in the comments down below. Bye guys, see you all next time.